The first snowfall of October had barely melted when the town of Red Hollow welcomed another ordinary morning. Smoke curled from old chimneys. Cattle drifted across frost-covered pastures. The general store opened before sunrise, just as it had for nearly 70 years. Nothing extraordinary ever happened in Red Hollow, until two stubborn children decided they would become the greatest horse riders the valley had ever seen. 10-year-old Nathan Briggs wasn't the fastest rider. He wasn't the strongest either. But no one worked harder. Every afternoon after school, he disappeared into his grandfather's weathered ranch, where broken saddles, restless horses, and endless chores waited for him. Across the creek lived another child everyone knew, Hannah Cole. She wore dusty boots instead of shiny shoes. Her long brown braid rarely stayed neat for more than an hour. She laughed louder than anyone in town, and somehow convinced every horse she met to trust her within minutes. The first time Nathan saw her, she wasn't asking for help. She was trying to rescue a frightened foal trapped in a muddy ditch. Without saying a word, Nathan climbed down beside her. Together, they spent nearly an hour pulling the frightened animal free. When the exhausted foal finally stood on shaky legs, Hannah smiled. "You don't talk much." Nathan shrugged. "I'd rather work." She laughed. "I think we're going to be friends." She was right. From that afternoon on, they became nearly inseparable. Years slipped past like the changing seasons. Every spring they repaired fences. Every summer they joined cattle drives stretching across miles of open land. During autumn they raced horses through fields glowing gold beneath the setting sun. Winter meant feeding livestock before daylight and warming frozen hands beside crackling fires. The ranch wasn't simply where they lived, it shaped who they became. Older ranchers often smiled whenever they watched the pair working together. They moved like they've known each other forever. Nathan's grandfather always answered with the same quiet smile. Some friendships are built stronger than blood. Neither child ever argued. Neither imagined life without the other. One July evening, the annual Red Hollow Rodeo filled the valley with music, cheering crowds, and the smell of barbecue drifting through the air. Nathan had entered the junior barrel race. Hannah competed in calf roping. Neither expected to win. By sunset, both stood on the winner's platform. The crowd applauded as they proudly held small silver belt buckles above their heads. After everyone left, they climbed the hill overlooking town. The fireworks painted bright colors across the night sky. Nathan reached into his pocket and pulled out the tiny silver horseshoe buckle he had won years earlier. He placed it gently into Hannah's hand. "You keep it." She looked confused. "What for?" "So you don't forget me someday." She smiled. "I couldn't forget you if I tried." Nathan hesitated before speaking again. "When we're older," she waited. "I hope you're still riding beside me." Hannah looked toward the stars before answering. "I don't promise forever." Nathan's smile faded slightly. She bumped his shoulder and grinned. "I promise tomorrow." For two teenagers, tomorrow sounded close enough to forever. By the time they turned 23, life looked very different. Nathan now managed Briggs Ranch almost alone after his grandfather's health began failing. Every decision carried consequences. Every drought threatened another unpaid loan. Every broken tractor became another expense he couldn't afford. Meanwhile, Hannah had built a reputation as one of the finest horse trainers in 3 counties. People traveled hundreds of miles asking her to gentle, difficult horses. Offers arrived from large ranches in Wyoming, Idaho, and Texas. Each paid far more than anything Red Hollow could offer. She turned every one of them down. Whenever friends asked why she stayed, she'd simply smile. "My home is here." But home had begun changing. Developers from the city started buying land surrounding Red Hollow. Old ranches disappeared one by one. Luxury cabins replaced grazing fields. Property taxes climbed higher every year. Families who had lived there for generations quietly packed their belongings and left. Nathan watched neighboring ranches vanish almost monthly. Each empty pasture reminded him that Briggs Ranch might be next. The pressure slowly changed him. He smiled less, worked longer, spoke only when necessary. Some nights he fell asleep still wearing dusty work gloves. Hannah noticed. "You can't carry everything by yourself," Nathan answered without looking up from repairing a fence. "Somebody has to." "You don't always have to be that somebody." He forced a small smile. "I've got it." But he didn't. Bills continued piling higher. The ranch accountant finally delivered difficult news. "If next year's cattle prices fall again," he paused, "you may have to sell part of the northern pasture." Nathan remained silent. That pasture had belonged to his family for over 80 years. Selling it felt like selling part of his identity. Only a few weeks later, Hannah received another letter. This offer wasn't like the others. It came from one of America's most respected equine rehabilitation centers in Colorado. They wanted her to lead their entire horse recovery program. The salary was 3 times what she currently earned. Housing included, health insurance bonuses, everything she'd dreamed about. She folded the letter carefully and slipped it back into the envelope. For 3 days, she carried it everywhere. She wanted to tell Nathan. But every time she saw him struggling beneath another mountain of responsibilities, the words disappeared. One cool evening, she finally found him repairing an old windmill as the sun dipped behind the hills. "I need your opinion." Nathan climbed down. "What about?" She handed him the envelope. He slowly read every page. His eyes paused on the salary, then the job title, then the location. When he looked back at her, he smiled. "You earned this." She searched his face. "That's all? What else should I say?" "I don't know." She hoped he'd ask her to stay instead. He carefully folded the letter. "You shouldn't miss an opportunity like this." Her chest tightened. "So, you think I should go?" Nathan looked across the empty pasture. "If it's your dream." He forced another smile. "Don't let this place stop you," she nodded quietly. But inside, it felt as though he'd already begun letting her go. The following morning, she accepted the offer. Neither of them realized that one decision made in silence would change both of their lives forever. The morning Hannah left Red Hollow, the entire valley seemed quieter. Her old pickup disappeared beyond the rolling hills just after sunrise, carrying little more than 2 suitcases, a saddle, and the dreams she had postponed for far too long. Nathan stood alone beside a weathered fence, pretending to inspect loose boards while dust from her truck slowly settled back onto the road. He never waved. She never looked back. Not because she didn't want to, because looking back would have made leaving impossible. Life has a strange way of rewarding sacrifice while punishing silence. Colorado offered Hannah everything she had worked for. The rehabilitation ranch stretched across nearly 5,000 acres, surrounded by snow-covered mountains and pine forests. Injured horses arrived from all over the country. Some had survived wildfires. Others had been rescued from neglect. Many had lost their trust in people completely. Within months, Hannah became known as the trainer who could calm horses no one else could touch. Veterinarians respected her. Owners requested her by name. Magazine articles featured her remarkable work. For the first time in years, she was building a future entirely on her own. Yet every evening, when the mountains turned golden beneath the setting sun, she found herself remembering another sunset, another ranch, another cowboy who had never asked her to stay. Back in Red Hollow, Nathan's days only became harder. Spring storms destroyed miles of fencing. Summer drought dried up the creek that supplied water to much of the ranch. Feed prices climbed. Cattle prices dropped. The bank extended another loan, but everyone knew loans only delayed problems. They never solved them. Nathan worked before sunrise and often long after dark. Some nights he slept inside the barn because driving back to the house felt like wasted time. Friends noticed the change. The cheerful young cowboy who once laughed around every campfire had become a man who barely smiled. 3 years passed. One afternoon, Nathan received unexpected news. His grandfather quietly passed away in his sleep. The funeral brought nearly the entire county together. Old ranchers shared stories. Neighbors delivered meals. Children placed wildflowers beside the wooden church. Nathan thanked everyone politely, but after the crowd disappeared, the ranch felt emptier than ever. His grandfather had been more than family. He had been the last person who truly understood what keeping Briggs Ranch alive meant. Before leaving the church, the family lawyer handed Nathan a small leather journal. "Your grandfather wanted you to have this." That night, Nathan opened it. Inside were decades of handwritten notes about ranching, weather.faith.family. Near the final pages, one sentence stopped him cold. "Never lose someone because you're afraid to tell them they matter. Land can be earned again. Time cannot." Nathan stared at those words for a long time. For the first time in years, he admitted something to himself. He had never stopped loving Hannah, not for a single day, nearly 1,000 miles away. Hannah received a phone call she never expected. Her father had suffered a mild heart attack while repairing a collapsed barn roof. The doctors assured her he would recover, but he couldn't continue managing Cole Ranch alone. Without hesitation, she requested temporary leave. 2 days later, she drove back toward Red Hollow. The valley looked almost unchanged. The same mountains, the same rivers, the same dusty roads winding between old ranches. Yet something felt different. Several familiar ranches had disappeared. Modern vacation homes stood where cattle once grazed. The town had begun losing pieces of itself. Her father smiled the moment she walked through the front door. "I knew you'd come." She hugged him carefully. "You should have called sooner." He laughed softly. "You've always worried too much." Over the following weeks, Hannah repaired fences, organized feed deliveries, and helped neighboring ranchers prepare for branding season. Being home felt natural, as if the years away had only been a long afternoon. Still, there was one place she carefully avoided: Briggs Ranch. Fate ignored her plans. The annual Red Hollow livestock auction arrived in early autumn. Nearly every rancher attended. Nathan hadn't expected to see Hannah. She hadn't expected to see him either. Their eyes met across the crowded auction barn. Neither moved, neither spoke. 3 years disappeared in a single heartbeat. Nathan finally walked toward her. "You look different." She smiled politely. "So do you." Silence followed. Awkward, heavy, filled with everything neither of them knew how to say. Finally, Hannah broke it. "I'm sorry about your grandfather." Nathan nodded. "He talked about you often." That surprised her. "He did?" "He said the valley felt smaller after you left." Before she could answer, another rancher interrupted the conversation. The moment ended almost as quickly as it began. Over the following days, chance kept bringing them together. They crossed paths at the feed store, then at the blacksmith's workshop, then during a community cattle drive after hundreds of animals escaped through damaged fencing caused by a powerful storm. Working side by side felt strangely familiar, almost effortless. They still anticipated each other's movements without speaking, still trusted each other around nervous horses, still shared quiet glances that said more than words ever could. Even the older ranchers noticed. One elderly cowboy chuckled. Funny how some partnerships never really end. Neither Nathan nor Hannah answered, but both secretly wondered if he was right. Late one evening, after finishing repairs near the northern pasture, they sat beside a small campfire overlooking the valley. The silence wasn't uncomfortable anymore. It reminded them of younger days. Nathan finally spoke. "I read something my grandfather wrote." Hannah looked toward him. "He said people spend years protecting land, while losing the people standing beside them." She quietly stirred the fire with a stick. "He sounds like a wise man." "He was." Nathan hesitated. "I wish I'd understood him sooner." Hannah looked away. "So do I," for a moment. It almost felt like the conversation both of them had waited years to have. Then headlights appeared in the distance. A black SUV climbed the dirt road toward them. It stopped beside the pasture. A sharply dressed man stepped out carrying a leather briefcase. He smiled confidently before extending his hand. "My name is Victor Langford." Nathan shook it cautiously. "I represent Horizon Ridge Developments." The name alone made every rancher uneasy. Victor glanced across the open valley with obvious admiration. "This land is worth far more than cattle." Nathan's expression hardened. "We're not selling. Victor smiled as though he'd heard those words many times before. "You don't have to answer tonight." He handed Nathan a sealed envelope. "Just read the offer." Without another word, he climbed back into the SUV and disappeared into the darkness. Nathan opened the envelope. Inside was an offer large enough to erase every debt his family had accumulated over generations. Hannah quietly looked at him. He didn't say a word, but for the first time she saw uncertainty in his eyes. And deep inside, she feared the ranch that had brought them together might soon become the very thing that tore them apart once again. Nathan didn't sleep that night. The offer from Horizon Ridge. Developments lay open on his kitchen table. It was more money than his family had ever imagined. Enough to erase every loan. Enough to build a new life somewhere else. Yet every time he looked out the window, he saw the same rolling hills his great-grandfather had settled decades earlier. This wasn't just land, it was home. The following morning, Victor Langford returned. "I assume you've made your decision." Nathan folded the papers and handed them back. "My answer is no." Victor wasn't surprised. He smiled calmly. "I thought you'd say that." Then his smile disappeared. "The bank won't." Nathan frowned. "What do you mean?" Victor adjusted his jacket. "We recently purchased the loan your ranch owes." The words landed like a punch. "Which means," Victor continued, "if payment isn't made within 30 days, Briggs Ranch legally becomes ours." He tipped his hat politely before driving away. Nathan stood frozen. For the first time in his, life, he truly believed he was about to lose everything. News spread quickly through Red Hollow. The town had already lost too many family ranches. Nobody wanted to watch another one disappear. When Hannah heard what had happened, she drove straight to Briggs Ranch. Nathan was repairing a broken gate. He barely looked up. "You don't have to help. I'm not here because I have to." She stepped closer. "I'm here because I choose to." Nathan sighed. "I don't even know where to start anymore." Hannah looked across the pasture. "Then we start the same way we always do, together." For the next 3 weeks, the entire town came alive. Neighbors donated hay. Local ranchers volunteered. Equipment. Retired cowboys spent long days repairing barns and fences without asking for a dollar. The high school FFA students helped vaccinate cattle. The local diner served free meals to every volunteer. Even children collected spare change in mason jars, labeled "Save Briggs Ranch, Watching." "Everyone unite" reminded Nathan of something his grandfather often said. "A ranch may belong to one family, but a community keeps it alive." Meanwhile, Hannah had an idea. Over the years, she had built relationships with horse owners, veterinarians, and trainers across several states. She contacted every one of them. Within days, requests poured in. People wanted horses trained. Others wanted rehabilitation programs. Some asked for riding clinics. One large equestrian organization even offered a year-long partnership. If the ranch could host training events. Nathan stared at the emails in disbelief. "You did all this?" Hannah smiled. "No," she gently nudged his shoulder. "We did." For the first time, Nathan realized something important. He had spent years believing saving the ranch meant carrying every burden alone. But real strength wasn't found in standing by yourself. It was found in allowing others to stand beside you. 30 days later, the bank manager arrived at Briggs Ranch. Victor Langford stood nearby, already expecting to collect the property. Instead, the manager smiled. "The loan has been paid." Victor's confident expression vanished. "What?" The manager handed Nathan the official release documents. "The ranch is debt-free." Victor demanded an explanation. The manager simply shrugged. "Turns out people still believe some places are worth saving." Victor silently returned to his SUV and drove away. One in Red Hollow ever saw him again. That evening, the entire town gathered beneath strings of lights hanging between 2 old oak trees. Music drifted through the warm summer air. Children laughed, cowboys swapped stories. Around a fire, for the first time in years, Briggs Ranch felt alive again. As the celebration continued, Nathan quietly walked toward the hill overlooking the valley. He found Hannah standing alone, watching the sunset. just like she had all those years ago. He slipped a small object into her hand. She opened her fingers. It was the tiny silver horseshoe she had returned years earlier. "You kept it?" Nathan nodded. "Every single day." His voice was steadier than it had ever been. "I thought letting you chase your dream meant I was doing the right thing." He looked down. "The truth is, I was afraid. Afraid you'd realize you deserved someone better." Hannah's eyes filled with tears. "I never wanted someone better." She stepped closer. "I only wanted you to believe you were enough." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The evening breeze carried the scent of fresh hay across the valley. Finally, Nathan smiled. "You once promised me tomorrow." Hannah laughed softly. "I remember." He reached for her hand. "What do you say we stop waiting for tomorrow and start forever instead?" She didn't answer with words. She simply wrapped her arms around him. The applause from the town below erupted as friends and family realized exactly what had happened. Months later, the old Briggs Ranch welcomed a new beginning. Not with luxury homes or paved streets, but with horses running freely across open fields. The ranch became one of Montana's most respected equine training and rehabilitation centers, combining Nathan's lifelong ranching experience with Hannah's professional expertise. Visitors came from across the country, not just to learn about horses, but to witness what determination, forgiveness, and a united community could build. And every evening, as the sun disappeared beyond the mountains, Nathan and Hannah could still be found riding side by side, across the same pastures where two stubborn children had once dreamed about the future. Some promises take years to keep, but the ones built on love are always worth the wait.